but there is a corporate application as well. And despite her frequent failings, America has drawn close to God, as have few nations in history. She has gone to war, but again and again, it was not for lands or wealth, but to release the oppressed, to set captives free. And it did these things in part as an outgrowth of a corporate reverence for Almighty God, His Word, and His principles. That is the heart of American exceptionalism. And the reason those 1950s Army instructors could teach new recruits that our nation is a covenant nation. Winston Churchill understood this on a profound level. In August of 1941, 4 months before the attack on Pearl Harbor, Prime Minister Churchill and President Franklin Roosevelt met off the coast of Newfoundland. They were there ostensibly to hammer out what would later be called the Atlantic Charter, which was a set of goals for the post-war world. But for Churchill, there was another more pressing matter, the survival of the British Empire. It was a dark time in the world, and at that moment, the German army was sweeping across the Soviet Union. Britain was in a precarious state, dependent on U.S. arms for its very survival, and desperately needing the United States to actively enter the war. The conference began on a Saturday aboard the American ship, the USS Augusta. On Sunday, they held a church service aboard the British ship, the Prince of Wales. Churchill would later describe it in a radio broadcast.
We had our church parade on the Sunday in our Atlantic Bay. The President came onto the quarterdeck of the Prince of Wales, where there were mingled together many hundreds of American and British sailors and Marines. The sun shone bright and warm, while we all sang the old hymns which are our common inheritance and which we learned as children in our homes. We sang, "Onward, Christian soldiers." And indeed I felt that this was no vain presumption, but that we had the right to feel that we were serving a cause for the sake of which a trumpet has sounded from on high. When I looked upon that densely packed congregation of fighting men of the same language, of the same faith, of the same fundamental laws, of the same ideals, and now to a large extent of the same interests, and certainly in different degrees facing the same dangers, it swept across me that here was the only hope, but also the sure hope of saving the world from measureless degradation.
Neither Roosevelt nor Churchill were particularly pious men. Churchill had said that instead of a pillar of the Church of England, he was a flying buttress supporting it from the outside. But according to eyewitnesses, as they sang "Onward, Christian Soldiers," the battle-hardened Prime Minister wept. In response to the song, Roosevelt said, "We are Christian soldiers, and we will go on with God's help." Later, the president told his son that singing the old hymn cemented us. Years later, Churchill would write of their hymn singing, "Every word seemed to stir the heart. It was a great hour to live.